Today, I'm going to tell a story about love at first sight, about how you can understand emotion, how you can understand a cognitive state, how you can understand how this can affect your strategy, how you essentially can build a program that's optimized right out of the gate and provides you love at first sight. As we take a look at this statement, there's two words of importance: emotions and influence. They go hand in hand. Sometimes people will talk about emotions and trust. Emotions and influence. We're going to focus on that, and we're going to come back to it. But next, we're going to move on to this gentleman. His name is Professor Daniel Kahneman, 2002 Nobel winners from Princeton. He won the Nobel Prize for Economic Sciences. And the reason why it was Economic Sciences is because there wasn't a Nobel for behavioral economics, which he founded. Through his studies, what he's been able to find is that humans, people, are incapable of making rational decisions. We're incapable. Why is that? Because there's two parts of the brain. You have an unconscious, and you have a conscious. That unconscious is also known sometimes as the stranger within, because you literally do not know what it's doing, and then the conscious tries to rationalize it and make excuses for it, or agree with it or disagree with it. So we're going to come back to him. He's important. So we're first going to start out today in this story talking about audience. So in order to understand the cognitive state of an individual, you have to understand the different levels of emotion. How many people have seen this movie, Inside Out? Great. Great movie. What this image depicts are the 5 different emotions that they utilize in that movie. So there's actually more than that. Some say that there's 7, others say that there's many more, depending on the different psychologists that you speak with. 5 were only used in this movie purely for the fact that it's an hour-and-a-half long movie, and you can only have dialogue between 5. Any more would be too much, and you wouldn't be able to develop the different characters. The other 2 that people will normally utilize are surprise and contempt. But on the screen, we're looking at joy. We're looking at disgust, anger, sadness, fear. So now, when you're thinking about an individual, and we're talking about content along this conference, we're always talking about personalization, we're talking about the journey, and quite often when I'm having conversations with people, especially in the finance industry, ever since 2008, cataclysmic event, we have to rebuild trust. Well, what does trust mean? Oh, trust means we have to produce content that they're going to absorb, and they're going to love it, and eventually they'll form trust. That's not how you build trust. That means it has nothing to do with trust. Do you understand what's cognitively going on in that person's mind? Well, we've done focus groups. You know something? Self-identification doesn't work. You need to go deeper, and you need to understand what's going on in the subconscious to truly understand what that person is emotionally going through. How many people gambled while they've been here? Has anyone lost money? There's some people that lost money. So, according to Professor Kahneman, as part of his behavioral economics that he found is not only are we incapable of making rational decisions, which we're going to get into later why, but that a pain of a financial loss is much greater than the pain of a gain. He was actually able to map it. And that mapping was, if you lost $10 today, in order to feel righted, you need to make 20 tomorrow. And that's when you're equalized. So again, coming back to different institutions, yeah, we're just trying to build trust. Well, you know something? Unless you truly know what's going on in the brain, how do you understand how to build that trust? How do you connect with your audience? How do you connect with those different emotions? And how do you get them to work synergistically together? So not only can we attribute that fact to a financial loss, let's take a look at a brand delivering on brand promise, because it's the same premise. So when we look at it, 2/3 of brands believe that delivering on their brand promise is sketchy. 14% are saying they aren't delivering at all. So what's that mean? Recently, I've been having a spat of issues with Amazon. I feel like every time I order from them, the product comes broken, it never comes on time, it doesn't come at all. You try to ship it back, you can't get in touch with the people. That's a brand promise broken. Therefore, distrust in that particular brand. I know other friends and many people that I've spoken with, before they go abroad, what they'll do is sometimes they'll just get a new credit card. But the problem is you get a new credit card and you go overseas and it's supposed to work overseas and now it doesn't work. They try to get on the phone. It's a bad user experience. So what you're doing is you're actually creating the same you're actually placing the same type of cognitive state into that individual. So now as you're thinking about content and you're thinking about, okay, as a brand, okay, we're understanding the end audience. So what we're doing here is we're analyzing the end audience and what they're feeling before we move any further. So ultimately, what's going on here is an audience is now perceiving your brand a certain way. They have a cognitive state, and then a brand just decides to put out content based off of behavioral data, other large data formats, and they go out and they try to optimize against that data. But essentially, what we're responding to is that original stimulation, that stimuli that's out there, and then how the brain is processing it. This statement I put up here mentions an ad. But what is an ad? That ad could be any form of stimuli. It could be content. It could be a video. It could be a tool. It could be other. And so what we're doing here is we're talking about the cognitive state, the emotional response to someone and the ad that you're placing or the content experience you're placing in front of them. That's the audience. But now we're going to go into the brand. So now what we did is we analyzed what the audience is feeling. We went into their brain. So now as a brand, how do you communicate with them? Many brands are not necessarily great at humanizing themselves. All brands have a DNA, have a persona. How do you convey that persona? How do you pull someone from that brand and create a voice? How do you connect that brand to an audience in a human one-to-one relationship?